we are having Maya Shavit from the Boston Business Journal, our partner here at WBZ, join us for some conversation today. We're actually talking about local Black businesses here and the impact that is being felt by those Black businesses following all of the DEI rollbacks that we've seen from the Trump administration. Maya, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's really exciting to be able to speak about this topic.
So now, my first question, tell us what made you get interested in exploring this topic.
Sure. With Juneteenth, really recent, I realized a few weeks ago that I wanted to dive into some of the realities that Black-owned businesses may be facing right now, with some of these topics that you were alluding to and the external pressures that are going on. Previously, I've covered diversity in business, and the most important takeaway for me when doing so was always to go directly to community leaders and hear them out. And when I did that, I started hearing repeat topics surrounding the topic of survival for small Black-owned businesses that led me to explore the story.
Okay, so you're out in the community, boots on the ground, speaking to community leaders, interacting with those local business owners. What have you found when you've started talking to them? Like, what have they been telling you?
Yeah, so once I started exploring the conversations of current business challenges for small Black-owned businesses, I found two main findings. The first was a sense of fear that's sort of going along with the tumultuous current political climate and having real impacts with when it comes to the confusion surrounding DEI implementations, and small businesses are the ones that are being hurt the most when it comes to these rollbacks. And then that second topic, which stemmed out of it, is overarching fear is that there are real consequences for businesses when it comes to the supplier diversity categories. So, who is being chosen to implement services for larger businesses, public and private?
And, I think it's really interesting that you mentioned that. I want to go to that for a second because I think sometimes people think of the impact as just being the businesses that we are seeing, the brick and mortar that we can walk into. But when I was reading your article, it was very interesting also that you pointed out about the supplier diversity programs and like how the suppliers are being impacted. Because when you read it, you're like, that makes sense. But I think it's your local business owners in your view that you think of immediately, but the suppliers are being impacted as well.
Yeah, no, it really goes both ways. I think it's really interesting to see how even if a service for many years has been established as a great give and take for both businesses, something surrounding this DEI confusion and conversation of implementation is making people stop engaging in those relationships, even if they might have previously had really positive experiences.
Now, Massachusetts is generally seen as a more progressive state, but I also thought it was interesting in your article. You spoke with the West Roxbury salon owner who actually felt a little reluctant to put up her Juneteenth flag this year.
Yeah. So yeah, I spoke to Canessa Alexander, who owns Perfect 10 Unisex Salon in West Roxbury, and she described to me a feeling of attitudes shifting in her neighborhood. And something that really stuck out to me was how she explained that neighbors who may have felt upset or even hateful regarding Black-owned businesses or Black neighbors in general previously are now feeling more empowered to express their hate and disdain. And multiple business leaders that I spoke to unfortunately felt that there has been this changing tide going on.
And I think that it also just points out like the impacts of the DEI rollbacks haven't just been on business, but business owners are feeling it in terms of the attitudes and the moods and maybe the interaction even with some of their customers, or maybe they're not seeing customers that they used to see previously.
Yeah, 100%. I think that it's multifaceted, and the business is just a representation of people themselves, right? So it goes both ways.
Now, how hard was it to have the business owner speak on record? Because, I mean, you and I both know people have some amazing things to share, but it can be hard to share on record, not because they don't want to, but they don't potentially know what the reaction to them could be, after it is published or after it is aired. So, how difficult was it to get her to talk to you on the record?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely received a lot of no's from other business owners because it's an incredibly sensitive topic. I mean, you're talking about your livelihood and your personal safety.
Mhm.
Those are really challenging topics to discuss openly, but that business owner specifically and other business owners throughout the story spoke to me really frankly because they felt that they were speaking up for others and that their story would be echoed. And I know it is in other business owners' experiences. And just to understand just how dire the situation is and the chance for people, customers, and greater community members to get involved into the story and understand how even in a progressive state, even when it seems like if things might not be as bad, their voices do matter. And the story is one that is shared among many Black business owners right now in the small business community.
And I always like to make sure when I wrap up an interview that I give viewers something they can do, right? Because people hear it. And I think a lot of times people hear things and they're like, well, how do I change? What can I do? How do I jump in? How can I help? And sometimes for people, that's not so clear. And for others, it is. So for people who are listening and they're trying to figure out, well, how can I show, local Black business owners support? What can I do to help? Maybe even beyond just patronizing their business. Is there anything that people can do?
Yeah, I think beyond consistent patronage and continue to support businesses that you care about, regardless of who is involved in owning that business. I think just being a part of the community and actively participating and telling your neighbors and your friends to also continue to be a patron for businesses that you believe in and continue to try to just be kind in your neighborhood and continue to have that support. It goes further than I think and one individual may think. When speaking to these business owners, it's frankly clear that there's this sense of fear. So if there's anything that you as an individual can do to calm that ease when you're speaking to your neighbors, when you're speaking to these business owners, I think that's the best that you can do as an individual. And then larger than that, there's definitely the conversation of speaking to people within your own business network and understanding how your contracts and the contractors that are involved with your business network might be impacted.
And I think this is so important for viewers to hear because those might be things that they're already doing, but sometimes those small things don't feel large enough. But to hear you explain, like, no, if everyone does something in their own space, that can still affect change.
Yeah, I think that's the message that I heard from business leaders as I was out trying to understand the situation this Juneteenth, trying to understand what celebrations are going on and what some hesitancies were happening surrounding this point in time when there's just so much confusion. I think consistent support is really the message that people want to hear.
Okay, now Maya, is there anything you want to make sure that you include for viewers that I didn't ask specifically?
I think that just understanding that there are business support groups that are involved here. So BECMA, which is a very big part of the Black Economic Council here. And there are other support groups that are established. So if there are Black-owned businesses who may be feeling pressures, there are resources out there to go and find community, find support, and potentially, fill in those gaps where your business might be lacking right now.
Oh, okay. That is always good to know that you have resources because sometimes when you get into those moments, you kind of feel like it's just you. It's never just you, but that's how it can feel. So always good to share and encourage our business owners to go ahead and seek out those resources.
Yeah, definitely. I think that that's really important. And as I mentioned before, Canessa's story is one that I heard many times, and trying to just speak to business owners and make sure that their voices are just getting in community with one another is important.
Well, Maya Shavit of the Boston Business Journal, thank you very much. And I look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.